audience. And what's really broken in the leaky funnel right now is tons of low value engagement on social platforms, TikTok, Instagram, but how you actually convert those people into a point of sale or some sort of transaction, actually know who those people are, is very fragmented and very hard to do. So that's what Rivet is solving for artists.
Okay. Let me come to you, Wandia. In terms of scaling, you say you cover only 30,000, 200,000 people, your customer base? What are the numbers like?
So at the moment, we're primarily in Kenya. We have a network of 23 stores,
Okay.
and only one is outside of Kenya and Rwanda. But we are looking to expand into other parts of the continent.
Right, but your customer base is...
Customer base is very small, like I said. I mean, it's about, any given year, it's about 25,000, 30,000.
Okay. So in terms of scaling, I wanted to ask, how you develop cultural and creative industries that are viable and competitive locally, but most importantly internationally, with these big players.
I think it's in what you're offering, and if you're offering something that, whether it's the music that is different and people like, or in the clothing space, and I think you can go down different paths. When we're looking right now to see if there's an opportunity to bring what we offer to the US, but not necessarily with a strong ethnic print to it, but more so from a functional point of view. But I think that's just our niche. I think there are other brands that are doing exceptionally well, doing a much more traditional or fusion type look. So I think it's just about knowing who your customer is and what would resonate with that customer.
Okay. All right, Duke, I wanted to ask you this question. I've been dying to ask you this question. I think Burna Boy was in DC in December. Was it in December? He had a big concert. He had a big concert around December, and there were numbers being run on in the news that he made $1.6 million in that one concert. That's a lot of money. I wanted to ask you how that translates for the entire entertainment ecosystem in Africa. What does that mean to a distributor, supplier, or a promoter?
So it's interesting that I was contemplating writing an article about music, the new oil of Africa. With the subtitles saying, we export, but we don't benefit. First of all, he didn't make $1.something million. The event grossed $1.something million. Does it make sense?
Right.
So then it comes with the expenses and whatever. So I'll leave you the details. The problem with what we are doing, which is not our fault, but it's because Africa, like some of the panels have said, Africa the government needs to sort itself out. Because there's no structure in Africa, they're able to take products. Let me go back to oil, because I'm from oil producing part of Nigeria. The oil is grilled in the Niger Delta, is exported raw to be refined, then sold back to us in different products, whatever. Doesn't make sense. Even the refinery we have is stationed in Kaduna, which is in the northern part of Nigeria, which about less than 30% is functional. Dangote is constructing a refinery that should be ready soon in Lagos, which does not produce oil. It would be better than exporting. However, for those who do government, it's cool. You understand that it makes sense that when the oil is being whatever it's called that you refine it right there on the spot.
Yeah.
Because when you don't do that, what happens is that it costs you money to export it to go to refine it.
Logistics of moving it.
Exactly. But that system is flawed because when Peter Obi said some years back, one of the presidential candidates some months back, that corruption is what's killing this space. Right? I'll bring it back to music. We have all the talents. You have the Burna Boys, you have the Davidos, you have the whiskey. Apologies for non-Nigerians. Nigerians own the space right now, so and I'm Nigerian, hey. but the DSPs are the United States, and some of them are on, one or two of them owned by China. So the DSPs are making a bunch of the money. Now we're having deals with the foreign labels. Every label has to sign with every artist has to sign with an international label because they want to be global. How does that play in the African space? I can tell you that what that happens is because we are exporting everything and not owning our own stuff, we don't own the DSPs, we don't even have regulations that restricts how much of money is going out of the country, right? So the artists, when they become big, they start to save their money, and also because the currency is bad, they start to keep their money in dollars,
yes.
Which does not help the African economy directly. Now, another thing is they also register businesses in every other country, which you're not able to tax them based on how much they're making here. But as an American, even when you walk outside of America, America finds a way of collecting that some money from you. So you see the problem.
Right.
So, but if we had an ecosystem that worked, now, one of the artists, I won't call the name, but I'm sure those who follow music know, performed in Nigeria in December, and there was a big problem. They were not able, because of the level it is now, it's an African act. The company was not able to produce the right set of musical backline and equipment for him to function, to perform. And it was a disaster. And he cost out the entire nation. So we're not investing in our infrastructure. My company had 200 concerts last year in North America, and we moved into the Caribbean, which was a very stressful thing, by the way. We moved into the Caribbean, we had a stadium show in Jamaica and in Trinidad. And what I now sat down to myself, and I spoke, when I was on the panel last year, I met the secretary to the vice president, the outgoing vice president of Nigeria. And I said to them, do you know how much money we could generate from music? In Boston, you have the House of Blues, you have the MGM, you have the stadiums and the arenas and stuff. How many of these do we have in Africa? I cannot tell you one Nigerian artist that has toured the whole of Nigeria, or that I can tell you they've toured 52 countries in Africa, because we don't have the infrastructure. So for us to benefit from what we are producing presently, both the private and the public sector must be involved in consciously developing the infrastructures that will help us to consume our music in a way that it benefits the economy and the society.
Right. Great point. Washe, let me come to you. Many Western corporations and social media giants are showing that there is a big demand for a piece for the African market. How do we ensure that this does not become an exploitative relationship? What kind of advice do you give to your independent artists that want to move on to establish relationships, or who have been approached by these big companies in terms of, I guess the fine print on the deals they're making?
Well, to be honest, we are already being exploited. But unfortunately, which is why this forum is very important, because the individuals here, I see us as custodians for the intellectual property from our territory. Like I said earlier, this artist is a remote part of Africa. He sings a song. Because of technology, he's picked up by the algorithm in Europe or in the US. They send a representative to give that artist $100,000 to get that content in perpetuity, ownership. It's exported. Whoever owns that is probably going to make X multiples in millions of dollars. But the artist is happy enough with that small bread because of the situation in our territory. So I'd like to say that for each and every one of us here, amazing humans here, different vocations, we should think about how to keep this thing home instead of having it exploited. Right now, looking at data, stream data, most of the artists I work with, and even the big ones too, when you check out the territories where the stream time comes from, Nigeria, Ghana, South Africa will probably be like maybe number 9. You have United States, Europe, France, London, and a couple of these foreign countries that actually do have the infrastructure. We had a couple companies open up in Nigeria, digital service providing companies, but like we rightfully said, and Dr. Abba said earlier regarding governments, we killed the structure. We were doing more numbers at the time when I don't want to call any names. At the time when these companies started, piggybacking off the back of the telecommunication companies in Nigeria, they were churning out more revenue than even Apple Music at the time. This was like in 2015. But by 2017, we had killed that structure already. People went in there, started embezzling. There was a whole lot of cheat streams on the content, so the pool for payment was compromised. And then we destroy that. So right now, they say you make money off suckers. Right now, we are the suckers. And the way it is, the content is being exploited heavily right now. So I'm hoping, and hoping strongly too, that some of us who think about being proper custodians and keeping this revenue home, because that's the only way we can even have longevity. AI is doing everything now, and AI is going to kill a lot of humans. Right now you have AI mixing and mastering, AI doing Afrobeats. So that ingredient we have from home, once AI should learn that, you have Mr. Brown in Mr. Brown's country doing Afrobeats. That whole revenue is taken away from my cousins and nephews, So it's a bit of a problem, honestly, and I think all of us here need to think about it. This is a hub. This is a very good hub. We can strengthen ourselves by, what we're doing here, communicating with each other and networking to say, hey, how can we develop this? How can we keep it home? How can we create an ecosystem? Where are the funding guys? Where are the scientists? Where are the promoters? Where are the custodians of the business? Let's come together and see how we can develop this thing. It pays a lot. Trust me, the creative industry is crazy. It's very destructive, and there's a whole lot of cash in there. It has added to the GDP. Back in the days, nobody would look at that space. But when you actually factor this thing right now, you realize it takes a huge chunk. And like I say to everybody, entertainment is a very important thing. If you're in the military, if you're going to war, there's the drum corps. They leave you in there. There's going to be item 7 after this, there's entertainment in there. So you can actually, there's mood music now for guys who want to undergo surgery, where they can listen to it and actually, the healing process starts from that. So it's a huge part of who we are. And for me, it's talent. And talent is something that each and every one of us has. So to be honest, each and every one of us is creative. So we need to actually harness that industry properly. And we have heavy thought leaders in this space. But we haven't been able to hold our hands and create a structure.
I guess for the longest time, the attitude was always been that, entertainment and culture are not things that are mainstream. And, I know parents who discourage their kids from singing or being an artist because they wanted them to be lawyers and doctors. And,
unfortunately, that doesn't happen any longer. I started out in med school for 4 years and dropped out, went to computer science and left. And I couldn't find my core after a while. I was like, yo, who are you? You started out in medicine, you left to computer science. Who are you? So, but then I went back in time and realized that one of the things I love the most was entertainment. I used to love to dance. I love music. You know, in my spare time, one of my friends signed this artist, and while we were having our youthful fun, we were doing business. You know, there's this big gentleman in the crowd here who owns Safaricom. You know, but during my come up, we used to send a whole lot of messages to Safaricom. Say, hey, we want to, you know, so I was quite amazed to see him here, by the way, which is a huge blessing.
Salute.
So to cut the long story short, to be honest, I think that each and every one of us here, we are actually part of the solution. And this is actually a huge opportunity to actually connect properly. Like, this is actually a huge opportunity to actually connect properly. Because we are thought leaders in the industry.
Right.
But the problem is that we haven't consolidated this together.
Correct.
Duke, did you want to say something?
Yes, I wanted to say something real quick. I don't think that the cultural thing has changed.
The attitude.
The attitude towards it, and it's not a bad thing. And I'll tell you why. If he didn't have the experience I had, he won't be where he is today. If I didn't have the education I had, my company would not be where it is. So it's important that we don't knock everything out. I wouldn't tell my child, I have two sons by the way, oh, I want you to go and become an artist. He can tell you the struggle of an artist. So it's important that the education is a base. I used to say that education gives you an edge over poverty. Just in case you know what, you will get back up. You feel me? You know, you want to have that educational background. And the thing is, when I first quit engineering many years ago, I remember my mom saying to me, oh, because I used to be an engineering trainer with Verizon Wireless. And she didn't understand what I was doing. Because my dad used to follow my company and knows everything that we do, but my mom was like, she's not on social media, and she was like, oh, I hear you're quitting engineering, or like you quit engineering to become a tout. She didn't understand it until she spent a weekend at my house once and she saw how long hours at work and how many meetings we have, and she realized how many staff we have. And she was like, wow, your job is more important, it's harder than engineering, no. But the truth is that the education makes you understand that, because this space has...
Gives you the basis to understand.
Exactly. And it has different players. You have those who are accountants.
Yeah.
You know, you have those who are doctors in the space. You have those who are... anything you can think of that you're doing right now, you can actually do that in entertainment.
All right. We have to get in some Q&A, some questions from the audience. I want to make this as interactive as possible. But before we do, as you know, as you're raising your hands, I wanted to ask you, Churu, how do we, convert, fashion, music, to be a portal to other resources on the continent? People who are interested, to spur that interest in the continent, not just as, coming to listen to music or to enjoy our fashion.
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand that.
How do we, convert or create interest on the continent using fashion and music?
I mean, I feel like one, for
We're talking
any,
about
yeah,
music,
I mean, for any of our businesses to really succeed, or our industries, let's say, to succeed, it's really going to be around involving as many people as possible in all the different aspects of the value chain, so that people feel ownership and they can see how that's impacting their lives. I mean, otherwise AI, China, everything will be taken over, so unless an approach which is very extractive, where you don't engage and involve and show people how they're benefiting themselves and their communities, it's not going to work. So I think in fashion and in other spaces, it's continuing to tell the story, to show all the ways that lives are being impacted. When secondhand clothes come into a country like Kenya, we've looked at the numbers and we can show that 10 times more formal jobs will be created. The government will get 16 times more taxes by anything that's local. The types of jobs that will be created across the value chain, from the influencers, the makeup artists, the photographers, the retail people. I mean, there are just so many opportunities when you can do it right. And if you then can obviously you have to have a product that's speaking to people. And you can see the change that can have. But if we sit back, China will take over.
Do we have any questions from the audience? I see a question here.
Mike, so
The gentleman right there. Oh, you have the mic?
I have the mic. Thank you all. Thank you for the panel. Thank you for the information. Wandia, this is for you. First of all, congratulations on your success. And thank you for being a great ambassador for Kenya. Thanks for representing us well. I'm from Nairobi. So, question for you in regards to what you mentioned. Do you want to be able to bring in your business and start working in the U.S., at least expand in the U.S.? It sounds very good. It sounds great. But what's the reality of doing that? What are the challenges? What opportunities are there?
Let's take another quick question. That's for you. Yes, sir. You. Then you will come next after him.
Yes, thank you very much for this panel. A lot of good information. There is an industry which started out in Nigeria and it has gone worldwide, and that's Nollywood film. And I was wondering what its status is in terms of benefiting not only Nigeria but all of Africa, or is it also being exploited by Hollywood, among others?
That's a great question. That's a great question. One more question, and then that gentleman right here in front. Yes.
All right. Mine is more of a comment. So just listening to all the talks so far, there seems to be one common thread that is running through all of them. And it feels like Africa has entered into this sort of, if you like, a suicide pact, I don't know, as a result of our colonial relationship with the West. And it then circles back to how do we kind of break this sort of enduring, dependency or exploitation that is going on. And what I hear is going back to sort of our government, right? And Plato once said in his sort of recounting the dialogue of Socrates and others, his companions, regarding they were trying to find justice. And he said there were 3 reasons why one would go into politics, right? One would be sort of the financial benefit for getting into politics. Another would be the honor and prestige associated with politics. And then the third one, he says, is to avoid the punishment of being ruled by people who are not sort of, if you like, for lack of a better word, are smart.
Qualified.
Right? So, but it seems like most of the smart people in Africa have avoided that punishment by leaving the country. So I'm actually also the chapter chair, the Boston chapter chair of the leading opposition party in government. And so I'm using this opportunity to encourage you, the young smart ones, to get into politics, right? Get associated with the political parties back home. And let's go back and take over. I mean, we can't avoid the punishment by taking over.
Thank you. We'll start with you, Ms. Gishoro, for the question.
Yeah,
and then
thank
you
you.
guys can take over the Nollywood question. Yeah.
So before I say anything about the US opportunity, I think the main vision for us is to see Africa dress herself, and for fashion, for the opportunity and fashion to really be optimized for ourselves. When you look at the 20 richest people in the world, I think 2 or 3 of them made all their money in fashion. There is real opportunity in fashion, and I think to create those economic opportunities on the continent is key. One of the things we've done is, in addition to having our own brand and products and stores, is that we've created a marketplace for fashion in the region, in East Africa to start with. And within a year, we've onboarded over 250 local brands. And just having a platform where everyone can go and discover what's available to purchase in a way that they can trust the experience, I think, and we're seeing that growing very well. The US thing for me is interesting. I mean, when African Americans, Caribbeans, people in the diaspora come to Kenya and walk into a Vivo store, they go crazy and they buy tons of stuff. And I'm always like, where do you live? And they live in New York. And I'm like, why are you buying, why are you buying our product? And they say, because we actually don't find stores like this. We don't walk into stores in the States where we feel everything here is for us. It fits, it works, the price point works. And so we're like, well, if we can send our product to you and you'll buy it, why not? But we're not going to change who we are. We're not going to change our DNA too much. We will never produce anything outside of Africa. The Africa supply chain story for me is the core of who we are and why we exist. But we will welcome anyone who wants to buy the product, and we'll take your money. And if that's going to create more opportunities and more jobs on the continent, and if it's going to give us, elevate the brands, and I don't just say for Vivo, but for African fashion brands generally, then why not? But we're enough on the continent to create amazing businesses. Safaricom hasn't gone far outside of Kenya, and it's the biggest business in East Africa. We know that the opportunities and the solutions lie with us, and we can do it. But yes, if we can add a bit to that in the States, we'll go for it.
Absolutely. Duke, I wanted you to both, actually the three of you, to talk about Nollywood. The second biggest film industry in the world, actually. How has that really translated to the local population in Nigeria that are part of the producers, the distributors?
So I'll let Olu take that question.
Yeah.
Dude, nice. So thank you so much, sir, for that question. And I'll say this. The creativity is in Africa, but the monetization happens outside Africa.
Correct.
Which is a huge problem. We've tried to, we have some really smart, young, old people too at the same time, come up with different solutions to monetize the content within the territory. But like I said, sir, we kill it. It's short-lived. It's always short-lived. It's almost like a curse. But I'll tell you something, sir, just to answer, to give a little perspective to this. They say charity begins at home. And I believe every single human being has value to bring to the table. Once we recognize this, we will exploit our content way better. We can create this infrastructure at home. We've done it. It's just that it's always mismanaged, or the government policy will, go against it because of some interest somewhere. So I'll say that these are the issues we have right now. And the truth is that right now everybody's looking for cash. So if somebody sweeps into your territory right now and gives you a bag, you take it.
Ange, I wanted to ask you, as a person, based on some of the things you've seen in your company, I'm always curious. We've seen so many of African hits going viral on TikTok and these other social media platforms. Does that necessarily translate into revenue for the artist? And for you, Duke, does that actually mean that if you're very popular on TikTok, if your song has gone popular on TikTok, that you're going to be able to sell tickets to the stadium or to a concert somewhere? And you can start off, Duke will finish it.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I resonate with a lot of the points that they had around ownership when it comes to IP, when it comes to the audience that you can sell your content and your products to. That doesn't really exist. And that's why Rivet is focused on the infrastructure to help that exist, because ultimately this comes down to community and owning that community and actually owning that relationship with who you actually extract value from, artist to fan. And like you're saying, songs go viral a ton on TikTok, things go viral on Instagram. Maybe there's an uptick in followers or post engagement, but actually understanding who those people are, what caused a certain thing to happen, and how can you, one, repeat that, but even understand that to be able to make that a little bit more, or a little less short-lived is missing. One, a lot of it is a data problem. A lot of it is just people also not really spending time to actually use use tools or use technology to understand what they're doing, and that's some of the stuff that we're focused on. So to answer your question, it doesn't really translate, but there's stuff in there that could translate if it was better understood, and that's what we're focused on.
Okay. He said it very well. I'm trying to see how I'm going to match his response with simpler words. So, there was an artist that was so big on TikTok last year, and we decided to tell him, we smartly combining with other data from other platforms. He was big on TikTok, but other platforms here, neither here nor there, and he didn't have enough catalog as well to put him in bigger rooms. And when I remember when we announced it, somebody said, "Oh, why are you putting him in this room? He can sell this." And I laughed. He didn't sell out those rooms. I didn't think we had any sold out show more than 500. I think I said this in What's Business School. It was one of the business schools. So you didn't hear that. So the point is, remember that TikTok, first of all, is also trying to understand themselves. They don't have an identity yet. So for those who are, TikTok is a Gen Z thing, right? The demographics of those on TikTok don't even have the purchasing power. That's one, right? Secondly is you could be big on TikTok, but you don't have actual followership. So people know that song, they know the tune, they make funny videos with it, but are they willing, do they connect that song to you, the artist? So if they don't connect the song to the artist, then you can TikTok all you want, it's not going to sell tickets. And we've tried it with several artists, and we've seen that TikTok is short-lived if you're not, especially if you're not able to follow up with the buzz and increase your catalog by making more songs to match. So it sets you up for failure because you think that you are bigger than what you actually are. So it's really a tough one.
And just to add to that point, the way we think about it is things like TikTok, Instagram, if you just think about it as a sales funnel, that's all in the discovery phase, and that's great. You need that traction and that volume to get to lower where you can actually sell things to people. But that's not even necessarily, like that's a TikTok thing that you mentioned. It's not just Nigerians. Like we've seen artists here be very upset at their shows that people only know 15 seconds of the song. Like it's really use that top of the funnel, but it's actually building a process to actually get people into your community where you actually know them and can actually build a relationship that will translate into buying tickets, coming into your shows. It's not going to happen off of TikTok.
Response. Any more questions from the audience? Yes, ma'am.
Good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, sorry. I have a pretty long question, but I think it's very important. How do we go about adding value to the work that we do, whether it's our businesses, the products that we develop, our services? We all know as Africans that when we go back home, Duke, using you for an example, I've seen your work and how you've scaled your business. A lot of these African artists, before we've had this Afrobeats explosion, you could sell tickets for like $50, people would still complain. Now, you see these artists, now that people outside of Africa, Nigerians, Ghanaians, etc., West Africans specifically, know and love our music. We're seeing these tickets. I mean, they're $200 tickets, $150 tickets, and people are not complaining. How do we go about investing in ourselves before outside parties have to get involved? That's something that I see every time I go back home, and it's very frustrating because we have the talent, we have the intelligence, we have the opportunities, but unfortunately, it's like we don't place value on it until people outside of those areas do. How can we go about intellectual expansion and pouring into our own communities to make sure that, yes, we do want to scale and involve other currencies in order for us to grow, but how can we do that at home first? Basically, we don't need to be recognized by other people in order to feel great, and it starts at home. How can we go about that?
Yeah, or is seeking validation from outside.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll make it, because I know there's signs around saying that we're losing much of time. I'll make it very brief. The first is, I think somebody mentioned, most everyone who has, a lot of people have value to give to Africa out here. By the way, I did not jump back. I came from my sister's wedding, but but I had my green card at that point and I never went back. However, I think that one thing he mentioned first is you'll start getting involved in politics. Very important. Very important. We cannot make changes if you don't have, for those who are from Nigeria, Nigeria is the smartest country in the world, won't be anywhere, but has the dumbest leaders in the world. So it goes back to Socrates and Pluto, whatever the quote he said. And it makes you realize that you could create value by starting in your small community, right? So create value by starting in that little thing you do. Because the problem with the African child and the African nation is that we are looking for the next person. Like sorry, I'm using Nigeria as a lot of example, but that's where I'm from, sorry. We expected the INEC, which was the electoral body, to be perfect, to conduct a free and fair election. But those who are in INEC are made from the society, which is a corrupt society. You expect the priest to be saints and angels, but they're from a sinful world. So you cannot eat your cake and have it. So the value that we need to create has to start with ourselves, right? In the little space you are, how well are you doing it? How are you looking out for the next person? How are you helping the other person to grow? If you think of everything, every value you create as $1, then you're doing it wrongly. But if your value is to help the next person, that next person you help will turn to $100. So that's the mindset of, I have to make money out of everything. I know a friend of mine who his friendship is based on what value are you bringing to me. He doesn't have friends that don't have money. That's wrong. You should have people that you could learn from, people that you could always teach. So put value to family, put value to your business, whatever you're doing. If it's local, do it well. If it's a relationship, do it well. I hope that helps.
Yeah,
Thank you.
just to piggyback off what he's saying.
Just real short.
Yeah, real short.
Yeah.
You know, polity. I was listening to Dr. Awa the other time, and it's very important to get involved in the polity that changes stuff. That's why I said, you know, everything starts from home, and all of us here need to consolidate. So basically, to kind of answer your question, there are Africans in here. Take for example now, we keep talking about Afrobeats or West African music because of English. We forget that there are local sounds, do you understand, that can be harnessed and developed. And believe it or not, it's selling. I mean, I'm from Nigeria too. I made a lot of money from content from the northern part of Nigeria because we monetized from the telcos. So there are things you can actually tap into locally when you open your eyes to them. So we just need to open our eyes to these things.
I like that idea. If you're not on the table, you cannot get change, you know. You want to something?
Yeah, no, I was just gonna, yeah, I mean, I'm listening to some of the other panels yesterday and today, and especially around this issue around funding and things like that. What I've seen is we are best placed to support ourselves, and keeping, you know, seeing ourselves as a community that, you know, as we rise together, we just get stronger and stronger. I think we've seen many other communities do it. And I just think, unfortunately, you know, Africans have been a bit slower at getting there. I think traditionally we knew how to do it, but somehow it got lost. I mean, when I think about business, I don't just think of my business. I think of the industry. I think of what's happening in our country, on the continent. And we have to keep lifting each other up. And so this thing of we're trying to compete against the next small person next to us, no, the ocean is big. You know, let's not see our competition as each other. So at Vivo, we open up. We tell all the other designers and fashion business, come look at the technology we're using that's helping us. Because if you grow, more and more people will believe in what the local fashion space can offer. And so when we have people on the platform, it's not just about listing their products. How can we sit with you and think about your pricing model, you know, give you data that's going to help you grow? You've just got to go the extra mile. Because I would not be sitting here if I hadn't gotten the support and gone and done programs I can't name the other schools, but you know, there are other places that I've learned from and seen how that knowledge has shifted the way we think about our business, and then shared that with other businesses. So yeah, I think you can't be selfish.
Thank you.
That's the point I was going to make. I think a lot of it is other communities have done it really well, and I think about it as favors. Like there's certain things you see, whether it's nepotism, whether it's just friends helping friends, like other communities will just give people shots and then things work out. But that's the type of kind of philosophy that we need to adopt. Like your next man, how can you help them without thinking about how we can help you and how can we do favors for ourselves? Like it's our community and we can uplift each other.
I said this is the most interesting panel. We've barely scratched the surface, and I think it's already an hour, so we've come to an end. Many thanks to our panelists. Thank you so much, guys. And thanks to all of you for joining.